The locks didn't work. I stood on my own front porch with luggage from Shanghai, and my key wouldn't turn. Then a stranger opened the door. "Can I help you?" he asked, confused. "I live here," I said. He shook his head. "No, we bought this house 3 months ago." My 73-year-old heart nearly stopped. While I'd been teaching in China for 6 months, Deborah Klein, our HOA president, had somehow sold my fully paid-off house for $340,000. What Deborah didn't know was that forging property documents isn't an HOA violation. It's criminal fraud, and it carries a 5-year prison sentence. I'm Thomas Brennan, 73 years old, retired high school history teacher. I taught for 41 years in Portland before retiring 12 years ago. My wife Eleanor and I bought our home in Cedarwood Estates HOA 15 years ago. A modest 3-bedroom ranch on a quiet cul-de-sac in Beaverton, Oregon. We paid off the mortgage in 2011. The house was fully ours, clear tile, no liens. Eleanor passed away 4 years ago. Pancreatic cancer. Very quick. After she was gone, the house felt enormous and empty. Our daughter Sarah suggested I find a purpose, something to fill the time. That's when I learned about teaching positions in China. Private international schools were hiring retired American teachers. Good pay, housing included, a chance to see the world. At 70, why not? I signed a 1-year contract with Shanghai International Academy, teaching American history to Chinese students. I arranged everything carefully before leaving. My neighbor Bill would check on the house weekly. I set up automatic HOA dues payments. I notified the post office to hold mail. Everything was handled. Cedarwood Estates was a quiet HOA. 42 homes, mostly retirees and young families. Monthly dues were reasonable at $85. We had a 3-person board that managed basic services, landscaping the entrance, maintaining the community fence, organizing the annual 4th of July barbecue. Then Deborah Klein moved in. Deborah was 62, divorced, worked in real estate until she retired. She bought a house 2 doors down from me about 3 years ago. She had that look. Expensive highlights, designer athleisure wear, oversized sunglasses she wore even indoors. She drove a white BMW with a vanity plate, blessed. 6 months before I left for China, Deborah got herself elected HOA president. She ran unopposed, which should have been our first warning. At her first meeting, she announced plans to elevate community standards and increase property values. "We need to be more aggressive about violations," she said, smiling brightly. "Protect our investments." Most people nodded along. It sounded reasonable. I left for China in September. Before departing, I met with Deborah to confirm my contact information and emergency procedures. "I'll be back next March," I told her. "Everything is arranged. My dues are on autopay." She smiled warmly. "Have a wonderful adventure, Thomas. Don't worry about anything." I should have worried about everything. The first 3 months in Shanghai were incredible. Teaching eager students, exploring a fascinating culture, rediscovering purpose. My neighbor Bill sent occasional emails. "The house looks fine, no problems." Then in December, I received an email from Deborah. Subject line, "Urgent property violation." The message stated that my lawn had excessive growth and visible weeds, violating community standards. I was being fined $150. A photo was attached showing my front yard. The grass looked maybe 3 inches tall, perfectly normal for winter. I emailed back immediately. "Bill is supposed to be maintaining the yard. I'll contact them. Can you waive the fine since I'm overseas?" Deborah's response came 6 hours later. HOA rules apply equally to all residents regardless of location. Payment due within 15 days. I paid the fine and called Dill. "The yard looks fine," he insisted. "I mowed it last week. Deborah's being ridiculous." In January, another violation notice. My house numbers were faded and non-compliant with community standards. Fine, $200. I looked at my records. I'd replaced those numbers 2 years ago. They were perfectly visible in Google Street View. I emailed Deborah. "This seems excessive. Can we discuss this when I return in March?" Her reply, Continued violations demonstrate disregard for community standards. Please remit payment immediately. Something felt wrong, but I was 6,000 miles away. I paid the fine. In February, Bill's email stopped. I sent him 3 messages, no response. I tried calling, straight to voicemail. Getting worried, I called my daughter Sarah in Seattle. Can you drive to Beaverton and check on Bill? He's not responding. Sarah called back that evening. Dad, Bill is fine. He said Deborah threatened him with trespassing charges if he entered your property again. She claims she has HOA authorization to manage the house while you're gone. He got scared and backed off. My stomach dropped. She has no such authorization. I know. Dad, something weird is happening. I drove by your house. There's a for sale sign in the yard. I felt the room spin. What? A real estate sign. It says coming soon with a local realtor's number. That's impossible. I didn't authorize any sale. Sarah called the realtor. They claimed they'd been hired by the property owner through the HOA to facilitate an estate sale. When Sarah explained I was very much alive and had not authorized anything, the realtor got defensive and hung up. I immediately called Deborah. It was 3 a.m. Oregon time, but I didn't care. She answered groggily. Deborah, why is there a for sale sign on my house? Long pause. Thomas, due to your extended absence and accumulated violations, the HOA board voted to exercise our lien rights. You owe $1,847 in fines and fees. Lien rights? For what? Unpaid violations, long maintenance we had to contract, property monitoring fees. You can't sell someone's house over HOA fines. Her voice turned cold. We followed proper procedure. You were notified multiple times. The lien was filed legally. Perhaps you should have paid more attention to your responsibilities instead of gallivanting in China. She hung up. I sat in my Shanghai apartment, hands shaking, realizing Deborah Klein was trying to steal my house, and I was on the other side of the planet, unable to stop her. I booked the first flight home I could get, 3 days later. Those 72 hours were torture. I contacted a property attorney in Portland who confirmed my worst fears. Oregon law does allow HOAs to foreclose on properties for unpaid dues, but only after very specific legal procedures. Did they send you certified mail notices of the lien? He asked. I don't know. My mail's being held at the post office. That's a problem. They need to provide proper notice. If they didn't, the lien is invalid. I landed in Portland on March 8th. Sarah picked me up, her face grim. Dad, I have bad news. The house was sold. Yesterday. I couldn't breathe. Sold? How is that legal? I don't know, but there are people living there. I saw them moving furniture in. We drove straight to my house. A Toyota minivan sat in my driveway. Children's toys on my lawn. A new doormat. I walked to the front door with my key. It didn't work. The locks had been changed. I knocked. A young man in his 30s answered, baby on his hip. Can I help you? I'm Thomas Brennan. This is my house. His expression shifted from confused to concerned. No, sir. We bought this house 3 months ago. We have the deed. That's impossible. I never sold it. His wife appeared behind him, worried. We bought this legally through a real estate agent. We have all the paperwork. I felt dizzy. This couple, young family, innocent people, had somehow bought my stolen house.
Sarah touched my arm. Dad, we need to call the police. Right now.
Standing on my own porch, locked out of my own home, I realized Deborah hadn't just bent HOA rules. She'd committed fraud. Real criminal, go-to-prison fraud. And I was about to make sure she paid for every single second of it. We drove directly to the Beaverton Police Department. The desk officer initially seemed skeptical. HOA disputes were usually civil matters, until I explained that someone had sold my house without my knowledge or consent while I was overseas. "That's not an HOA dispute," he said, expression hardening. "That's fraud, possibly identity theft and forgery." Detective Linda Morrison took my statement. She was in her 50s, sharp-eyed, thorough. I showed her everything: my deed proving ownership, my passport showing I'd been in China, my email correspondence with Deborah, bank records proving the house was paid off. "Who received the money from the sale?" "I don't know. I never authorized the sale." Detective Morrison nodded slowly. "Someone signed closing documents. We need to find out who and examine those signatures. This is a criminal investigation now." She contacted the title company immediately. They were required to provide all closing documents. Meanwhile, I went to the post office to retrieve 6 months of held mail. There it was, buried among catalogs and junk mail, 3 certified letters from Cedarwood Estates HOA, returned as unclaimed. I opened them with shaking hands. The first, dated October, notice of violations totaling $350. The second, dated November, notice of lien filing for $1,847, inflated with administrative fees and legal costs. The third, dated December, notice of foreclosure sale scheduled for January 15th. All 3 had been sent to my address, where mail was being held. Deborah knew I wouldn't receive them. That was intentional. My attorney, David Chen, reviewed everything. He said this is deeply illegal, even if the fines were legitimate, which they're not. The foreclosure process was fraudulent. They can't foreclose on someone who's not receiving notices, and the amounts are inflated beyond reason. Detective Morrison called 3 days later. "Mr. Brennan, we have the closing documents. The signature on the property transfer authorization is supposedly yours. Can you come in?" I went to the police station. She showed me the document. There was my name, Thomas Brennan, in a flowing feminine script nothing like my handwriting. "That's not my signature," I said. "I didn't think so." She pulled out another document. "This is Deborah Klein's signature from HOA records." I looked at both. The handwriting was identical. "She forged your signature," Detective Morrison said. "That's criminal fraud, forgery, and theft. The district attorney is reviewing for charges. We'll need forensic handwriting analysis, but this is prosecutable." I felt something shift inside me. Not anger, cold determination. Deborah Klein had tried to steal my home. Now the state of Oregon was going to take her freedom. The handwriting analysis took 2 weeks. The forensic expert concluded with 99.7% certainty that Deborah Klein had forged my signature on the property transfer documents. Combined with her signatures on the fraudulent lien paperwork, the case was airtight. On March 29th, Detective Morrison called. "We're making arrests today. Thought you'd want to know." 2 hours later, I watched from my daughter's car as police vehicles pulled up to Deborah's house. She answered the door in yoga pants and a shocked expression that quickly turned to panic. Detective Morrison showed her badge. "Deborah Klein, you're under arrest for criminal fraud, forgery, identity theft, and grand theft. You have the right to stay silent." Deborah's face went white. "This is a mistake. I was enforcing HOA rules. I had board authorization." "You forged property documents and stole a house, ma'am. That's not HOA enforcement." They handcuffed her. Neighbors came out to watch. Deborah saw me sitting in Sarah's car, and her expression twisted into rage. "This is your fault. You abandoned your property. You—" "Ma'am, stop talking," Detective Morrison said firmly, guiding her into the police car. The HOA board treasurer, Kenneth Walsh, was arrested the same day. He co-signed the fraudulent lien documents and received $15,000 from the sales proceeds. The real estate agent who had facilitated the sale was charged with conspiracy. Investigators found emails proving she knew something was wrong but proceeded anyway for the commission. The property title was immediately clouded. The young family who'd bought my house in good faith, the Hendersons, were devastated. They'd paid $340,000 for a house that legally still belonged to me. Their attorney contacted me within days. "My clients are innocent victims," she said. "They had no knowledge of the fraud." "I know," I replied. "I don't blame them."
It took 3 months, but we worked out a solution. The title insurance company paid the Hendersons their full purchase price back. That's exactly what title insurance is for. They got to keep their money. I got my house back. The insurance company then sued Deborah, the HOA, and the title company that failed to catch the fraud. Deborah's trial was scheduled for September. The DA offered a plea deal. Plead guilty to felony fraud, pay full restitution, 5 years probation. Deborah rejected it, insisting she'd followed HOA procedures. Her attorney looked exhausted. The trial lasted 4 days. The jury deliberated 90 minutes. Guilty on all counts. The judge sentenced Deborah to 3 years in prison and ordered her to pay $127,000 in restitution, covering the Hendersons' moving costs, my legal fees, investigation expenses, and damages. As they led her away, Deborah was crying. "I was protecting property values." The courtroom was silent. Deborah Klein served 18 months in prison before being released on parole. Her house was foreclosed on to pay restitution. Last I heard, she moved to California to live with a sister. The real estate agent lost her license permanently. Kenneth Walsh, the treasurer, received probation and was banned from serving on any HOA board in Oregon. The Hendersons, thankfully, found another house they loved even more. We stayed in touch. I sent their kids Christmas gifts last year. They'd been innocent victims, and I made sure everyone knew that. Cedarwood Estates HOA underwent complete restructuring. State investigators found multiple financial irregularities beyond my case. Deborah had been inflating fines and pocketing portions of the money for 2 years. The state imposed oversight requirements, and we elected an entirely new board. Our new president, Janet Lee, a retired paralegal, implemented strict financial controls and transparency measures. The HOA's insurance paid out significant claims, and our premiums tripled. Some neighbors grumbled about the cost, until someone pointed out what happens when you let criminals run your board. I moved back into my house in July. Walking through rooms I'd feared I'd never see again felt surreal. Sarah helped me repaint and replace furniture the Hendersons had removed. Slowly, it became home again. I didn't return to China. Teaching abroad had been wonderful, but this experience taught me that home, real home, matters more than adventure. Last month, I was gardening when a new neighbor introduced herself. "You're the guy who got his house stolen, right?" she asked. I nodded. "Good thing you fought back," she said. "People like her need to face consequences." I smiled. Yes, they do. Justice isn't always fast, but sometimes it's absolutely perfect. Looking back, I still can't quite believe someone thought they could steal an entire house and get away with it. But Deborah Klein's arrogance blinded her to reality. She genuinely believed HOA authority gave her unlimited power. The lesson here is not complicated. Document everything, know your rights, and never assume someone in authority is acting legally just because they're confident. Deborah counted on me being too far away, too old, or too intimidated to fight back. She was wrong on all counts. I also learned the importance of good neighbors. Bill tried to help until he was threatened. Sarah dropped everything to assist me. Even the Hendersons, who could have been hostile, worked with me to resolve things fairly. If you're facing HOA abuse or any kind of property fraud, don't hesitate to involve law enforcement. Civil disputes are one thing, but crimes are crimes regardless of who commits them. Thanks for listening to my story. If this helped you understand your rights a little better, I'd appreciate a subscription. Knowledge is the best defense against people who abuse power. Take care.